This is Steve Earth with the Department of Children and Family Bureau of Finance, and welcome to the cost report training. This is session 3 of 8 sessions that will be available regarding cost report. Today, this session will cover the verification tab of the cost report. As you can see, the verification tab, first of all, you're going to have the agency name and the service provider name. Those will be carried forward from what was entered on the cover tab. The rest of the yellow fields, highlighted yellow cells, will need to be completed by the providers. The first thing we're going to look at here is licensed capacity beds as well as program staff beds. If you're not sure what to put in there, a good place to go is to go to the definitions to get clarification. What you'll want to look for is the verification tab. And then as we go across, we can see the subset we can see right here is licensed capacity beds available. And then the definition we're there and what we're looking for in that field. The definition for that is the number of beds that your program facility is licensed to operate on a daily basis. With that, if the capacity is less than the licensed beds, please enter the capacity and clarify the difference in the assumption tabs. So what that means is if you're like a child placement agency and you're licensed for 200 beds, but your true capacity with your staffing, with foster parents available, your true capacity year in, year out is only 100, then what you would do is you would report actually 100 beds as being your licensed capacity beds, even though you're licensed for 200 beds. And then you need to make sure you give that detailed description of that information and clarify that information in the assumptions tab. Same with like if you're a group home, if you're licensed for 8 bed, but your home only has the capability or the capacity to handle 6, you could clarify that in the assumptions tab and then claim 6 licensed capacity beds instead of the 8 that you're truly licensed for. For the program staff beds, again, it's going to be the number of beds that your program or facility staff on an average daily basis. Obviously, it needs to be lower than it needs to be equal to or lower than what your license capacity would be, and then also needs to be the same or higher than what your average daily placement would be. So more or less, if you're a group home that has your license for 8 beds, your average daily placement is 4, then your staff bed should fall somewhere either at 4 or above or 8 and below. There's also in the definitions here, you can see different calculations to kind of calculate what your staff beds would be depending on the number of hours you're reporting for direct care and supervisory staff. So we'll go back to the cover tab. All right, take that back, the verification tab. And for example here, I'm going to say that obviously I run a group home. I'm licensed for 8. I have the capacity of 8. I staff on a regular basis for having all 8 beds full as far as the number of staff that I have. The next thing is provide current daily rate. So that would be what your current rate is. I'm going to just put in 170 here. My rate's fairly low. And then the next thing we're going to do is we got the total period placement days or the census. That doesn't mean when it says out-of-state period placement days, it doesn't mean that if you have one kid from out-of-state for the entire year or whatever you have, it's not going to be 365. If you had one kid for the entire year, that would be 365 days. If you had, as the example shows here, if you had one child for the full year and another child for half the year, that would actually be 547 days. It's not going to be equal to the number of days of the year. It should be equal to the number of kids and each day you had kids in placement. Again, for example, if today you have 4 kids in placement, that would count as 4 days for just today. So hopefully that clarifies. We had a lot of people that just put in 365. In this case, for my example, I'm going to say that I didn't take any out-of-state kids. I did not take any private kids, and my total days of placement for all kids was 2,000. Okay, again, you're going to enter that, and then it'll do the calculations for you for your average daily placement, your total days, your capacity, as well as occupancy percentage. If we scroll down, the next thing it's going to ask for is the amounts per your financials. Again, this should tie out, the cost report should tie out to what is in your audit report. It might not tie exactly, but it should at least be reasonable. Again, for this, I'm going to put my personnel care in here. I'm also going to put in what my property and transportation costs were. And again, this would be off your financials. And then also I did have some program allowable consumable cost that I would enter that total amount in for those. And then if you didn't have any costs for allowable reserves, program specific cost, or rounding, you should still put 0 in those fields. That way they will verify, as you can see on the right hand side. Once you're done filling out the entire cost report, all these verification tabs have to be verified and in green. They can't be any errors. If they're sent in the department and they have errors, they will be sent back to you. Also, that will show up on the review checklist. If you have errors here, you will get a red N when you do the review checklist, and that must be taken care of and corrected prior to submitting the cost report to DCF. Again, all this is verifying is what you put in per your financials matches up with everything that you entered in the cost report. It's not verifying that data is accurate and complete. It's just saying that the data that was entered matches the dollar amount that you entered per your financials. And that completes the training for the verification tab of the cost report. Thank you very much.